When I joined YouTube 9 years ago, I can't believe that it's been that long. When I joined YouTube as EternalDreamspace, I was 18. Up to that point, actually probably about 4 years prior, I started receiving comments about my weight. Not YouTube comments, obviously, but in person at a church I was attending at the time. And I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about my weight before then. It was kind of an issue when I was 13 because I started going to the hospital a lot for stomach pain. I couldn't even have a glass of water without feeling nauseated, and then sometimes I wouldn't be able to sleep because it hurt so bad. My family and a lot of close friends have always known that I've had a problem with acid reflux since I was about 8 years old. Sometimes the doctors refer to it as G.E.R.D. It might have been even before I was 8 years old, but I was only officially diagnosed with acid reflux at that time. I took liquid Zantac for a while. I can't remember how long because it's been such a long time ago, but I took that for a while and I was just sort of told that it would go away. And for some people, acid reflux and heartburn and stuff is the norm. It's usually more expected of someone that's put on weight recently or like an older adult. And so because I was so young and it was kind of, I don't know, not the usual, they treated it mildly with Zantac, and I can't remember how many milligrams. But I do remember mixing it in with V8 Splash, which completely ruined that drink for me. Not that V8 Splash is a great drink to have when you're a kid, it's just it was the only thing strong enough to mask the taste. Anyway, fast forward several years into the future, the problem started up again when I was 13. And I recognized the symptoms from way back when, and I tried to tell my doctors that was what was going on, but for the most part they focused on my eating habits. Because it hurt so much to eat and it bothered my stomach and it would make me nauseous and stuff, it became the doctor's goal to get me to eat more, among other tests to try and figure out sort of what was going on. I didn't have any idea how much this was going to damage me psychologically at the time, but looking back at it, it ruined my relationship with food until very recently. Since I was being told I needed to eat and the doctors seemed to be ignoring me and what I was telling them about my history with acid reflux, I looked at every plate of food like, okay, you have to finish everything on here or you're going to die, because I felt pressured to eat it. And I remember Mom and Dad would kind of encourage me lightly to eat more, and that just made me feel even worse because when I didn't, or when I got full and there was still a lot of food left, it felt like I was letting them down. Then of course when I did eat everything that they wanted me to, I would get like really sick. I would be hot and nauseous, my stomach would hurt, and this sort of became the foundation for my panic attacks years later. 6 months went by. That felt like forever with this routine, this awful routine. And it got to the point where I tried so many pills and so many suggestions from the doctors, and they kept encouraging me and pushing me to eat more, that I really just lost the will to try. It got to the point where I felt suicidal, and I started drawing these really depressing pictures of like women in bathtubs slitting their wrists and committing suicide. I had no joy whatsoever, and I didn't feel like anybody was hearing me. That's when I turned to the Bible in a way that I hadn't before in my life. I read Psalms a lot because there was a lot of suffering going on and God delivering people. My family's always gone to church. My dad was a pastor for a lot of years and then an evangelist many years after that, and now he's actually a pastor again. But this was something like I felt like I had nobody to talk to. I felt like I had nothing, and so I would just open my Bible and I would just read, and it was the only comfort that I could find. Sometime shortly after that, I had another emergency room visit for stomach pain, and I just told the doctor, I was like, look, I've got acid reflux. I'm not leaving this emergency room until you give me pills for my stomach. naturally they wanted to do a scope. That's where they go in with like a camera down your throat and they look at your stomach and check the lining of it. I honestly just couldn't do that. And I just told them in the emergency room, I was like, no, I'm not gonna do the scope. And I'm not leaving this room until you give me some pills. To this day, I don't really, like, I have a really hard time trusting doctors that I see, and I certainly don't respect them. It really does still bother me. And I stayed there for I don't know how many hours. I didn't leave that room until they gave me something, and they did finally give me something. Within a week, I was eating again, and my stomach was feeling normal. But there was definitely a mental block that I set up. I wasn't going to eat the amount anyone wanted. I was going to eat the amount that made me full, and still, like, that's still how I eat. That's just the attitude that I had. The difference now is I don't have that fear that I did then. This fear of people watching me, which wasn't such a huge problem until I started attending this church when I was 14. Because other girls going to this church that were my age were more developed than me. They had like breasts and hips, etc., etc. And I didn't really have enough sense or understand to just kind of explain my situation away like, well, my mom didn't start gaining weight until she was 29, and it was the same with my grandma. I just knew that I had stomach problems and that other kids my age ate more than I did, but I didn't eat as much as them because I had these worries. So I was on a medication called Protonics, and that is when the comments started trickling in. Not from the youth and the other kids my age, but from the pastor and his wife and other adults in the congregation. I was at a pool party for the youth class, and I had got like a bunch of chips on my plate and what I thought was a breakfast sausage, but I guess it wasn't. It was a hot dog. And I didn't like hot dogs. I still don't like hot dogs. And so I had eaten all the chips on my plate, but I had left the hot dog, and the pastor's wife walks by and sees me, and she just starts chastising me. You shouldn't get things on your plate that you're not gonna eat. You have to eat this. Something to that effect. And I just flat out told her no. I was not gonna eat the hot dog, and then for the rest of that evening, she was mad at me. From then on, that family would watch me at church functions, picnics, and dinners. Probably until I was 21 or 23, I couldn't even eat out because of this. I would feel like people were watching me, like they were judging me for the amount of food that I got on my plate and what I did and didn't eat, and all I wanted to do was just eat until I got full and then stop. But it felt like everybody in the restaurant was watching, and if I didn't eat everything, they would think that I had a problem like the people at this church did. I didn't want to explain to everybody that there wasn't something wrong with me, so I just avoided eating out and eating in front of people. There was an afternoon when the pastor called my dad because he said he was concerned with my weight, even though I had been telling him that I didn't have a problem, and my dad explained that I just had acid reflux. But that stuck in my mind for years, that phone call. That 6-month period when I wasn't on medication and I say the doctors were experimenting on me, the acid actually ate away most of the lining of my stomach. Even after that phone call between the pastor and my dad, I would still get flack for my weight and the way that I would eat things. And until I quit that church and started going to the church that I'm attending now, which my dad pastors, that didn't stop until the day that I left. Fresh out of all this drama, I came to YouTube where I would get regular comments about the same thing. I mean, body shaming it's a more recent term for what I went through then. And I didn't really feel good about myself or comfortable in my own skin and in my body until 2 years ago. There was a period when I would start to hyperventilate just eating in front of my family because I even started to feel like they were watching me. I can do so many things now that I couldn't do before. Like, I get excited when I go shopping now because I can just buy things and enjoy food for being food. Maybe that sounds silly, but I feel like I've stopped feeling like I have to justify to other people the amount of food that I eat. Still, when I do go to the doctor and they weigh me, I usually turn my back to the scale because I'm just not ready to see how much I weigh. Not for a while, not yet. that still bothers me a little bit, because I've always wished that I was heavier. That my arms, my legs, my boobs, I'm finally happy with them. I say I'm happy with my boobs, I'm wearing like a seriously massive, like, this is like a, I don't know, it's a bigger cup. It's to make them look bigger. It's a pretty large bra, but you know, I'm happier with them than I have ever been. I'm still taking my acid reflux medication, it's just a different kind now, but it works fine. Whenever girls tell me they envy my body, or they wish that they were as small as me, I want to tell them that you'll be judged no matter what size you are. It doesn't matter if you think size 0 or 1 is perfect. There are still people out there that are gonna tell you it's not. I've been accused of being anorexic so many times. People try to feed me. They say that I'm stick thin, that I would blow away with just the smallest gust of wind. But I can joke about this now. It's something that when people say it, I laugh about it most of the time. Anyone out there who wishes they were heavier, or thinner, or taller, or prettier, I just like to tell them to be happy with themselves. Things I like about myself are I have these fabulous curves. It's like this hourglass figure. And for someone as small as me, I have an amazing butt. Like, I've got some junk in my trunk. My butt is probably my favorite thing about my body. It's definitely possible to look at yourself and take things that you hate about yourself and say, this is so different, and it makes me beautiful. I love dresses, mini dresses, long dresses, skirts. I would never let myself buy any of those things because I was ashamed of the way that my legs looked or that my arms looked being exposed. And at the beginning of this year, I bought 1 or 2 dresses and put those on, got used to wearing them, and now I have just a dresser full of dresses. It's such a wonderful feeling to come to a place where you're comfortable enough with yourself to buy the clothes that you want, to put them on and look in the mirror and go, yeah, I really do look good in this. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner.